His wife was not human. Maria looked at him, tears streaming down her face. "I wanted to tell you," she whispered, "but I was afraid." Abigail's throat was dry. Afraid of what? She closed her eyes. Afraid of what the ocean would do. Before Abigail could ask more, a cry tore through the village. He jumped to his feet. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the huts. The villagers ran through the streets, shouting. "A child has fallen into the well." Abigail's heart stopped. Tunned. Without another thought, he ran. The well stood in the center of the village, a deep hole lined with stones. Villagers surrounded it, peering inside with wide, horrified eyes. Abigail pushed his way forward. His blood turned to ice. His son was inside. "Tunned," Abigail shouted. The boy's tiny voice echoed from below. "Papa, help me." The well was deep, too deep for anyone to climb down safely. The villagers murmured in fear. "What do we do? We cannot reach him." Then Maria stepped forward. She clutched her abdomen, her face twisted in pain. Her breath came short. Abigail saw it in her eyes. The fear, the hesitation, the truth she had hidden for so long. Then she looked at Tund, and she made her choice. With a pained cry, she leapt into the well. For a moment, all was silent. Then, a great flash of light. The villagers gasped, and before their eyes, Maria's legs melted away, fusing into a tail. A long, shimmering, golden tail. Abigail staggered back. His wife was a mermaid. With a flick of her tail, she wrapped Tund in her arms and vanished beneath the water. And she did not return. The village stood frozen. No one spoke. No one moved. Only the wind howled through the trees, rustling the palm fronds above them. The water in the well had gone still, as if swallowing its secret. Abigail stared into the darkness below, his breath coming in sharp gasps. His heart pounded in his ears. His wife. His Maria. She had transformed before his very eyes. The whispers began. She was never one of us. A river spirit. A water woman. A mermaid. Abigail gripped the edge of the well so hard his knuckles turned white. Tongue. His voice cracked. The villagers held their breath. Silence. A sickening dread filled his chest. Then, a splash. And a small hand rose from the water. Abigail lunged forward, grabbing onto his son's fingers, pulling him up with all his strength. The villagers rushed to help, lifting the boy onto solid ground. Tund coughed violently, water dripping from his clothes. Abigail held him tight, pressing his forehead against his son's. My boy, my boy. But as he looked down into the well, into the dark, still water, Maria was gone. Tund trembled in Abigail's arms, his small body shaking from the cold. "Where is Mama?" he whispered. Abigail had no answer. The villagers stared, some in fear, others in awe. Mama Abike was among them, her eyes unreadable. "She is not coming back," a woman murmured. "The river has taken her," another added. The old traveler, who had told the tale of stolen mermaid princesses, stepped forward. He studied Tund, then looked at Abigail with quiet sorrow. "The sea is patient," he said. "It waits. It watches." Abigail shook his head. "She would not leave us." "She did not leave," the traveler replied. "She was reclaimed." The words settled like stones in Abigail's chest. Reclaimed. Was this fate? Had the river been waiting all these years, waiting for Maria to slip, to fall, to return? Tund clutched his father's arm. "She said she would come back." Abigail stiffened. He looked down at his son. She spoke to you. Tun nodded, his small face pale. She told me not to be afraid. The villagers gasped. Some backed away. Mama Abai grabbed Adiani's wrist, pulling him aside. Listen to me, my son. That child, he carries her blood. And the ocean does not forget its own. Adiani's stomach twisted. He looked at Tun, his son, his flesh, his joy. But now, for the first time, he feared what lay within him. Days passed, but the village was not the same. The people no longer looked at Tun the way they once did. Some called him the boy who should have drowned. Others called him the son of a spirit. Adiani noticed the change, how mothers pulled their children away when Tun walked past, how whispers followed his every step. And then, the strange things began. It started with the water. Whenever Tun cried, the rivers rose. Whenever he laughed, the wells rippled. One afternoon, as he sat playing by the stream, the fish gathered around him, circling in patterns no human child should command. And then, the dreams began. Tun would wake in the middle of the night, gasping for air. Mama is calling me, he whispered. Adiani's blood ran cold. Adiani sat awake that night, watching over his son. Tun's small chest rose and fell in steady breaths, but his face was troubled. His tiny fingers clenched the woven mat beneath him, his brow damp with sweat. Then, he whispered, Mama. Adiani's breath caught. He leaned closer. Tun's lips moved again, but his voice was different, softer, like the wind over the waves. She is waiting for me. A shiver ran down Adiani's spine. Then, before he could react, Tun's eyes flew open. But they were not the eyes of his son. They were silver blue, the color of the deep ocean. Adiani staggered back. Tun sat up slowly, tilting his head as if listening to something only he could hear. His small hands twitched. Then, in a voice not his own, he murmured, "The sea does not forget." Adiani's heart pounded. Tun. The boy blinked, and just like that, his eyes were normal again. He yawned, rubbing his face. "Papa, what is wrong?" Adiani could barely speak. He pulled Tun into his arms, holding him tight. Something was happening. Something was coming. And Adiani feared that no force on earth could stop it. The village was uneasy. Since Moreo's disappearance, the rivers had grown restless. The fishermen whispered of strange things in the water, fish with silver eyes, voices echoing beneath the waves. And then, one night, the rain came. It was no ordinary storm. The wind howled through the village, bending trees like blades of grass. The riverbanks overflowed, spilling onto the land. The ocean roared, sending waves crashing against the shore. And in the heart of the storm, Tun stood at the doorway of their hut, staring at the water. Adiani grabbed him. "Get inside." But Tun did not move. His small body trembled, his hands clenching into fists. His voice was barely a whisper. "She is here." Adiani froze. Lightning split the sky. And from the ocean, a voice rose with the wind. Adiani. The villagers screamed. Because they knew. They had heard that voice before. It was Moreo. She had returned. But not as the woman they once knew. She had returned as something else. Something that no man could escape. The ocean had come for its own. The storm raged through the village, tearing thatched roofs from huts and bending palm trees like brittle twigs. The wind screamed like a restless spirit, and the riverbank swelled with an anger unseen for generations. But none of it mattered. Not to Adiani. Not when he heard her voice. Adiani. The sound drifted through the storm, not a whisper, not a shout, but something deeper, something that reached into his very bones. He turned toward the ocean, his heart pounding. Tun clutched his arm. She is calling me. Adeyemi tightened his grip on his son, his mind whirling. Stay here, he commanded. The boy's silver blue eyes flickered in the lightning's glow, his small frame trembling. But she needs me. Adeyemi lifted him into his arms and pushed his way through the screaming winds. The villagers huddled in their homes, their fearful eyes peering through cracks in the wooden doors. Some watched from the shadows, whispering prayers to the gods of water. Mama Bike met him at the village square, her face lined with worry. The storm is not ordinary, my son. The river spirits are restless. Adeyemi nodded. I know. He glanced down at Tun, who stared at the ocean with a longing that frightened him. What do I do, Mama? Adeyemi whispered. Mama Abike's voice was firm. You must choose, Adeyemi. Will you fight the sea or surrender to it? A fresh gust of wind howled through the village, nearly knocking Adeyemi off his feet. He had no time. If Moreno had truly returned, then there was only one way to know for sure. He had to go to the shore. The ocean was not like before. The shoreline had disappeared beneath the raging tide. Waves crashed violently, licking at the trees, threatening to swallow the land whole. But in the midst of it all, she stood. Moreno. She was half submerged in the water, her long, dark hair plastered against her face. But it was her eyes that made Adeyemi's breath catch. They glowed, not with the warmth he once knew, but with a light as deep and unknowable as the ocean itself. Moreno, his voice cracked. She tilted her head, watching him. Give him to me, she said. Adeyemi's grip on Tun tightened. No. Moreno's lips parted, and for a moment, he thought he saw pain in her gaze. But then the water swirled around her, and he knew this was not the same woman he had married. Tun stirred in his arms. Mama. Adeyemi backed away. You cannot have him. Moreno's expression darkened. The waves rose higher. The ocean does not forget, Adeyemi, she murmured. Neither do I. Then, before he could react, she reached out her hand. A force ripped Tun from his arms. Adeyemi lunged forward. No. But it was too late. The waves swallowed them whole. And just like that, they were gone. Adeyemi screamed as the waves swallowed Moreno and Tun. His legs pushed through the rising waters, his hands grasping at nothing but the wind and the foam of the angry sea. Tun. Moreno. His voice was lost in the storm's roar. The villagers stood frozen behind him, their eyes filled with fear and sorrow. No one dared to step forward. No one dared to defy the ocean. But Adeyemi would not give up. He dove in. Salt burned his eyes, and the waves tossed him like a child's toy, but he fought against the current. His arms stretched forward, reaching, searching. He had to find them. Then, a flash of silver. Something moved beneath the water. Moreno. Her tail gleamed like polished moonstone, her form shifting through the dark depths. And there, wrapped in her arms, was Tun. But he was not struggling. His small hands clung to her, his body pressed against hers. He looked peaceful. Adeyemi's lungs screamed for air, but he forced himself deeper. He reached out. Their fingers nearly touched. Then, a force yanked him back. It was not the tide. It was the ocean itself. A crushing weight wrapped around him, pulling him away, tearing him from his wife and child. His vision blurred. His strength faded. And as the sea pulled him into darkness, a voice whispered in his ears. She was never yours to keep. Then, nothing. Adeyemi awoke on the shore, gasping for breath. His limbs felt like lead, his chest ached, and his throat burned from swallowing seawater. He tried to sit up, but strong hands held him down. Adeyemi, a voice said. He turned his head and saw Mama Abike kneeling beside him. Her face was lined with grief, her hands firm on his shoulders. "Where?" he croaked. The old woman's lips trembled. "They are gone." Adigeni's heart stopped. The villagers stood behind her, whispering amongst themselves, their eyes filled with pity and fear. Gone. No. No, it wasn't possible. He struggled to rise. "I have to go back. I have to find them." Mama Abai's hands tightened. "You cannot fight the ocean, my son," she said. "No man can." Adigeni's vision blurred. The weight of her words crushed him. The love of his life, his son, taken. The world around him dimmed. The voices of the villagers became distant echoes. All that remained was the roar of the sea, and the knowledge that he had lost everything. Days passed, then weeks. The ocean remained restless. Though the storm had ended, the waters did not return to peace. The rivers were no longer clear, but dark, as if touched by the sorrow of the sea. And the villagers began to suffer. The fishermen cast their nets, but the fish were gone. The wells, once deep and plentiful, ran dry. The crops withered. The sky remained clouded, the air heavy with unshed rain. Mama Abai watched from her hut, her old hands twisting in her lap. She knew the truth. The ocean was angry. Adigeni had taken what was never his. And now, the land would pay the price. The village of Arimo withered under the weight of an unseen curse. Fishermen dared not sail far. Their nets returned empty, their boats rocked by unseen hands beneath the waves. Farmers watched helplessly as once fertile land refused to bear fruit. Even the sky held its breath, refusing to send rain, though thick clouds loomed above like silent witnesses to the village's suffering. Adigeni wandered like a man without a soul. His once strong hands had no work to do. His heart, once full, was hollow. Every night he walked to the shore. Every night he stood where the sea had stolen his wife and child. And every night he heard whispers beneath the waves. At first he thought he imagined them. The distant call of the tide, the wind's gentle song. But then the whispers grew clearer. Adigeni. The wind did not carry the sound. It came from the water. One night, as the village lay in uneasy slumber, Adigeni knelt on the shore, pressing his hands into the wet sand. "Moreo," he murmured. The waves lapped at his fingers. Then, a voice. "The sea remembers." Adigeni's breath caught. It was her. Moreo. The tide shifted, swirling in slow, rhythmic patterns. The night was silent, save for the whispers of the waves. And then she rose. From beneath the water, a figure emerged. At first, she seemed as he remembered, Moreo, his wife, the woman he had loved. Her dark hair clung to her skin, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. But then, Adigeni saw the truth. Her lower half was no longer human. A long, silver tail glistened beneath the water, shifting like liquid metal. Her hands, once warm and soft, were now pale and cold, webbed at the edges. Yet, her eyes were the same. Full of longing. Full of pain. "Adigeni," she said again, her voice weighed down by sorrow. Adigeni fell to his knees, the wind rushing from his lungs. "Moreo." She reached out, but did not step onto the land. "I was never meant to stay," she whispered. Adigeni swallowed the lump in his throat. "Where is Tun?" A shadow passed over her face. "He is safe," she said. "He is changing." The words chilled him. Changing? Into what? Adigeni's mind spun, his heart pounded. "Bring him back. He is my son, and he is mine, too." The sea swirled around her, churning with an ancient force. Then she spoke the words that would haunt him forever. "You took me from my home, Adigeni, and now ocean has taken something from you. Adiyemi shook his head. No, please, Maria. She began to sink. Come back to me, he begged. Her silver eyes gleamed in the darkness. And just before she disappeared, she whispered, if you truly want him back, you must come to the depths. Then she was gone. Adiyemi stared at the restless water, his body trembling. The choice had been made for him. If he wanted to save his son, he would have to follow Moreo into the ocean. Adiyemi stood at the shore, his heart pounding like the restless waves before him. Moreo's words echoed in his mind. If you truly want him back, you must come to the depths. He clenched his fists. The sea had taken everything from him, his wife, his son, his very sense of self. Now, it demanded something more. The villagers had warned him long ago. The ocean does not forgive. The ocean does not forget. Yet, what was left for him on land? A village that feared him. A home filled with silence. A life without his son. He took a step forward, feeling the cold water rush over his feet. Then another. And another. The waves wrapped around his legs like fingers, pulling him in. The deeper he went, the heavier the air felt, the world behind him growing smaller and smaller. Then, a voice. Adiyemi. He turned sharply. Mama Bike stood on the shore, her old frame trembling. Don't go, my son. You are a man, not a creature of the deep. His throat tightened. Mama, I have no choice. Tears welled in her eyes. There is always a choice. But was there? The sea had always